Okay, we are live for the weather report, January 24th, 2021. Jesus Christ, how'd that happen? And I want to say happy birthday to my sister, Char. So she actually, yeah. I remember the day she was born, I told my mom, don't do it, don't do it.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty
My little sister.
dark.
Yeah, that was dark. Yeah. But she did it, and I guess I'm okay with what we got. I do love her. She's a really, really close friend of mine, my sister. Anyway, so we were discussing morality and how we get mad at each other, and like when they call, well, Daniel Stern Cardinal has a PhD, and you did it last night too, Danny, calling him ignorant because you think you know more about what he knows about Darwin than a PhD biologist or evolutionary biologist.
Well, I don't think ignorance is being ignorant is not necessarily an insult, right?
That's an insult. But
you think it's an insult? Like I'm ignorant of all sorts of things.
No. Ignorance is not an insult. Stupid would be an insult because stupid is willful ignorance. It's basically looking at facts and trying to synthesize them into your own worldview. That's ignorance.
Yeah, I hate calling people. I have called people idiots and stupid, and I used to do it a lot, and then I've tried. I instead of the swear jar, I have the stupid idiot jar. Like I hate when I call other people stupid or idiots because I really don't know anything other than my interaction. So on what basis am I calling them stupid other than like they're not? I don't understand them, or it just doesn't seem like a real. It just seems so completely emotional. If I ever call you an idiot, Spade, I promise you that's just my emotion, right? That's not. I don't mean it, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't really like to call anyone idiotic or stupid. Now I will call people ignorant, but that's a little bit different for me, like you were saying.
For me, it's frustration. I get so frustrated trying to beat them over the head with the facts, and they don't, and they don't see it. And then at some point, while listening to John Maddox last night talking to Andrew here, a rational empiricist, and being all arrogant and going after him the way he did. And listening to the facts that John Maddox was referring to and realizing that John Maddox is ignorant. So when you're ignorant and arrogant, you'll end up getting called stupid by me.
Yeah, right? I think I think that I really hate calling people stupid and idiots, but I will call someone ignorant, arrogant, or pretentious. I will do that, right?
Right.
And to me, those are way more informative. Like that actually, to me, is really informing someone of what I think about them. Whereas if I just call someone stupid or idiot, like it without any kind of frame of reference, it's just kind of it's like lost words, right? But if I say someone's pretentious, all it means is that the proportion of what they know to the proportion of what they're claiming to know is off, or something like that, or or obviously arrogance kind of tracks that as well.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Like, okay, Joel, when he talks about how he's a scientist and a nuclear physicist and an inorganic chemist, and then you find out that he's lying through his teeth, and he's putting out all these really dumb ideas that don't mesh with the science. I mean, at that point, what do you call a person like that? I mean, the arrogant bullshitters, stupid. Because at some level they have to be kind of dumb to believe that they know that they know more than anyone else when they clearly don't. And another one, there's another one that's really good at that. Nephilim does it all the time, and these guys are just amazing. When you listen to them, for somebody who's actually studied genetics and you listen to their ideas, it really ends up emotional after a while because you can't stand it anymore. I mean,
right. I think that's what I'm trying to say is that I think that generally the way human beings are now, that we really suck at disagreement. We really suck at debating, and not just in terms of like who has the best argument or justification. In terms of like not, it's very hard for me. Even like I have to be very cautious, and I've really practiced to not let my ulterior motivations get in the way of my arguments and my claims, right? And it's hard, right? It takes a lot of training.
That's right.
And I think that generally speaking, human beings suck at it now, right? We just are not good at it. There are certain groups of people that are much better at it. Like if you take a lot of the profession, like academics, like I think, at least in the field that I'm interested in, um, there there's so much disagreement. It's probably the most, as you know, philosophy has no established facts. There's very little consensus, and if there's consensus, it's not really taken as a reason to revise your beliefs, right? So, but it's a very gregarious discipline. It's like very sociable, and people constantly talk to each other to kind of better themselves in terms of where they're writing or their whatever, right? And it's so weird that on that level, the problems kind of dissipate. But on like this level, like on using tooth and nail, you're going to use everything you can. If someone like I told a lot of people that I'm bisexual a few nights ago, and that I've been with a lot of guys, and they took it really well. But I know the second that I piss them off, they'll use it against me, right? I feel like that's true, right? Go back and go suck a dick, Danny, right? Something like that. I'm going to hear it eventually, right?
Yeah.
And I it's just so fascinating, right? That we go from that everything could be framed like, okay, this is a problem for us human beings. This is a problem for truth and falsity. So let's work on it together. That's the mentality, at least in professional philosophy. It actually is, right? It's so crazy. Everyone really respects each other despite fundamental disagreements, right? But when philosophy is applied, or debate, or science, whatever, politics, sociology, whatever it may be, on the lower levels, like the non-academic levels, people suck at getting the personal shit out of the conversation. It's just so hard to do, though. Admittingly.
Yeah, I don't have a problem as long as people don't take it, to a personal level. I mean, if they do, I tend to get very angry very quickly. But as long as we can have a rational discussion, I can talk to anybody who believes any kind of bullshit. I mean, I talk to you, and you have these weird ideas about natural selection. I mean,
I think we scheduled that for the 23rd, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Yep.
You and Dr. Dan?
Yeah.
Is it whose channel? This one or his or
whichever? We should benefit. Speed is trying to get like big money from this, so we should do it on his channel, right?
Yeah, we're going to do it. I think Dr. Dan agreed to do it here as a favor. So
he has a lot of money tied up in those books. I'll bet he could be a millionaire.
Start selling the books.
Start selling the book, man.
Well, Argatha asked me last night why I have so many books and why I spent $20,000 on books in 2019. And the reason for that is that the only way I learned, like when I was in second or okay, I'm sorry, somebody's feedback. I learned when I was in second or third grade that the only way that I could learn, I had a learning disability, probably ADHD related. The only way I could learn is to read from 5 to 10 books at the same time. So I have to look at a subject in multiple books, and I have to dart back and forth. So I get every goddamn book I can on a subject, and I go back and forth, and that manages to wrangle my mind. Otherwise, I cannot concentrate at all. I mean, I just fly right off the handle. So that's why I have so damn many books.
Yeah, the Kindle, I don't know. I don't seem to get as much out of a Kindle format or some sort of electronic format.
I know, it's because we're old.
I guess so.
What do you think? What do you think of Bob or Agartha or whatever his name is? He told me he came on here and spoke with you.
Well, he had that whole problem with somebody saying Jesus Christ. I mean, he just went non-linear. But other than that, he's I really like him.
I like him too, and he's one of the few that actually really try to understand me.
He actually does.
He tries to understand me, and I appreciate that. And he's actually decent at maintaining the conversation in a way where, like, you know how like you'll talk to someone and then they'll bring some irrelevant crap out into the playing field, and then you have to figure out, you might get caught in a trap of like pursuing it, or you have to like restrain yourself and say, well, okay, let's go back. He's I like him. I do like him.
Yeah. I was just listening to your talk about the fifth dimension.
Oh, did you? How much of that did you listen?
I probably got about, I'm not sure how much I have left, but I was
Talking about the music group.
Did you understand my objection?
You don't like the Fifth Dimension?
No,
you mean the music group?
I don't know anything.
I was going to fight on that, Danny.
I don't know any music. I don't really listen to that much music. But but like, did you understand the objection there? Where like, if God's
the crazy thing about it is, Argatha said something that he could have used himself to understand the Big Bang. I mean, he said, but he was claiming it for God. He was saying, "Oh, why couldn't there be something outside of 4D space time?" And he was trying to explain to you what he was talking about with another spatial dimension. Okay, time is a spatial dimension, not strictly, but you got to think of them the same way. So you got 4 dimensions. But now, if you had a 5th dimension, there could be a blob. There could be a blob of a four-dimensional object that floats down to the point where you're participating in it, right? You understand the dimensionality of math, right?
Yes, I do. But I guess the point that I was trying to make is that if time is understood in terms of events, or rather, if events require time, right? Then if God created, there would have to be an event at which God intended to create. So he couldn't create time because there would be an event prior to time which relies on time. That was essentially my argument. And I think we almost came, but then he wanted to talk about it in terms of dimensions, which personally I don't really see. I couldn't tie his response with what I was saying very well.
Yeah, he was trying to explain how God could have done it as a cause. And you were pushing back and saying there was no cause before the Big Bang because there was no time, right?
Right.
But he was trying to get you to extend that and see that, and I would do the same thing if I were trying to explain the Big Bang to you. But he was trying to explain God to you using this other dimension, this timeless dimension, another one. So
I mean, do you think that? Do you agree with me that cause relies on time?
No.
Okay,
no,
so
I agree with Argatha.
They call it atemporal causation. I think that's the name for it. But it's actually quite a puzzling, very, very puzzling phenomenon. No one really.
I have an interesting book on causality. It's called Causality.
Oh, really? By who? Oh, that I wanted to know.
I think
was it a scientist or philosopher?
I think a mathematician, maybe. Let's see. It's Causality by who the hell wrote that? The book. Anyway, but I don't really believe in causality. Judea Pearl.
You don't? Okay, so you're like a Humean or something?
Well, I believe causality is a when you take time and you look at time as a spatial dimension, causality is just what would you call it? Consistency, or basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Natural law.
Like a constant. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like there's a constant conjunction of events, but
juxtaposition.
Juxtaposition.
Like
it's not very Humean.
When one billiard ball hits another billiard ball, there's actually no causal contact between moments of time that you can find when you think about it. So you end up looking at it as basically there are patterns, and patterns end up looking like causality.
No, this is a very seriously considered view of causality, and it's basically a Humean view of causality, because he was pointing out the same issue. Like, look, all you're seeing are events and constant conjunction. Where's the cause here? I don't see a cause, right? I see events that follow one after another. But I that's not the whole picture with respect to human causality. I think I'm missing a bit. But I think that the idea, like, where, Kant was deeply inspired by Hume, and I could be wrong about this. I'm gonna have to verify this myself, and I'll do that sometime today so I can talk about it tomorrow. But I think Kant is going to say that stuff. Like, this is stuff that's part of our intuition, like causality, time, and space.
Yeah, causality is like
but I it's interesting to me. I haven't really done a lot of research on different philosophies of causality.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what the hell am I looking for here? Why can't I find Amazon? Damn it. Anyway, this book by Judea Pearl is very intense, very interesting, and he has a pretty good treatment of causality, I think. Models, Reasoning, and Inference by Judea Pearl. It's a good book, kind of a classic. So, there's Top Dog. Anyway, let's see. So, there's a whole bunch of stuff happened on Neff's stream last night.
Did you get some coffee in your Top Dog?
What's that?
I was asking Top Dog if you got some coffee in him.
Oh, I got to go get some coffee in me. I should let you guys
drink.
Gussie Gibbons' brain is full of mashed potato on philosophy. Oops. Okay, well, actually, Erica, you got a good start on philosophy. Mashed potatoes is where I started.
Now
Anyway.
I'm hungry for mashed potatoes. It's gone from foot-long chili cheese dogs to mashed potatoes. No gravy, but I would like some biscuits.
Yep. So, Andrew, you were first up, I think, last night on Neff's channel, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
Worldview Wrecking Ball is whatever it was. So
Yeah,
I think you came in at like 117, was it?
Yeah.
See.
Oh, you're not planning on going over to the whole chat, are you?
Oh, well, no, I just want to know what your impressions of it all were.
Yes. Okay. Well,
I got marsupial thing. Yeah, you want to deal with the marsupial thing?
Sure. If give your thoughts on that, and then I'll give some of my thoughts on the discussion.
Okay, you said marsupials don't have placentas, and John Maddox admitted to Googling it because he didn't know, right? And they're called non-placental mammals, basically. And that's one of the myths about they have placentas, but they're very different. And I don't know much more about it than that. But I found marsupial misconceptions, and people that are professionals that study marsupials get really mad when people say they don't have placentas. But the interesting thing was that John decided he made you retract it. You had to retract because you were talking about you talk about placental. What do they call them? Placental mammals and non-placental mammals, I think.
You can also call them euphorians and therians, I believe. I'm not sure exactly what the scientific name is for marsupial, but I'm pretty sure euphorian is placental mammals.
You'd probably be better off doing that than pissing off the people that study marsupials. So they have this misconception thing here. Where is it that I spotted? I'm not sure how I can make that bigger. I don't know how to make this picture go away.
Yeah, I saw that website when I looked it up too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and something I didn't know.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. Anyway, and John didn't know either because he Googled it as you were talking, just so that he could have a one-up on you. So other than that, what were your impressions of the discussion?
Okay. Well, the first thing was that I feel like, you saw how he used this pool analogy, right?
Yeah.
My first thoughts on that were that, okay, well, some traits are correlated with others in terms of a nested hierarchy pattern. Whereas, for instance, for houses, and I don't think he thought through this. Well, like houses, you can have, let's say we consider two traits, for instance, or traits, quote unquote. We consider the presence or absence of a pool, and the presence and absence of a trampoline, for instance. You can have a house with a pool but no trampoline. Right. You can have a house with a trampoline but no pool. You can have a house with both. And once you add more and more characters, the pattern doesn't apply, precisely because houses are designed, they don't evolve. through descent with modification.
Yeah, he introduced his own defeater.
Yes, exactly.
Unbeknownst to him, which was pretty funny. So, but yeah, he was, and then he was saying, I think Argatha or somebody said that doesn't disprove doesn't disprove creation. And what they don't get is that there is no way to disprove creation because it's not science.
Right.
And they said it out loud, but they don't get it. They still don't get it.
Right. Well, like the thing is, John, for instance, LPP mentioned how plants share certain fundamental characteristics. And then he talked about how they share, for instance, they share some reproductive organ, for instance, and I point out to him that reproductive organ, the organs for reproduction, vary in a particular way. Like you never find ferns with fruit, for instance. Why is that? Why is it we find fruit in vascular plants only, specifically flowering plants, but we never find a fruit like something like that for like ferns or mosses or whatnot? A mix and match of characters that would completely destroy
it would
universal common descent, right?
Yeah, because we have a falsifiable theory and they don't. And I think I put something in chat last night at the same time, and it was kind of long, and I said basically that you can't destroy any idea where they can modify it as they go, because creation science 30 years ago did not talk about created heterozygosity, and they did not talk about all the things that they're talking about today. So they keep modifying their model, their creation model, to accommodate everything that they discover in science. And then the other thing that John said is he said, these atheists, he calls them, but he actually means molecular biologists. They just don't understand the papers on molecular biology. And I posted in chat, I said, oh, so the molecular biologists don't understand the molecular biology that's in the papers that they wrote. I mean, that's what John is saying. He's saying that the scientists don't get it, but they wrote the goddamn papers that he's using to argue with them. And that, it just fucking blows my mind.
Right. And so the other thing I took from the discussion as a win, basically, was I don't know if you saw this as well, but Neff, basically, I gave the example of you take 4 taxa, kangaroos, tree kangaroos, monkeys, and something like a monotreme, like a echidna or something like that.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, tree kangaroos and kangaroos are part of the same kind. Why? And I asked why. He said because they're different. They're too different from monkeys, basically. Okay, so that means that they share more in common with each other than they do with monkeys. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you can say that, and I got them to admit you can say the same thing for tree kangaroos, and monkeys compared to reptiles or monotremes, for instance.
Right.
So then why, I asked, why not put, or I didn't quite phrase it this way, but like, why not put kangaroos, tree kangaroos, and monkeys in the same kind then? Because you're using the exact same logic as evolutionary phylogeneticists, essentially. So why aren't they the same kind? It's arbitrary.
And that's the other thing. I also posted in chat something about the cat kind, and they accept the phylogeny of the phylogenetic tree of the cat kind. They would accept how one cat is more related to another cat than, a house cat maybe. And so they accept it at that level. So why don't they accept the same exact methodology as how you go back before the cat kind, right?
Right. So, I mean, our Gotha's only answer to it basically was baraminology is hard.
Yeah. So yeah, you did pretty good. You're still the Neff whisperer.
Yeah, I think I'm back in business.
You're back in business. Unfortunately, took that stream down where you weren't the Neff whisperer for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, he must have been so brokenhearted that you guys had a problem that he took the stream down. I guess he got into some shitstorm with Standing for Truth and all of the Christians got into a fight. I think that's why he took that stream down. Something like that.
Anyway. Oh, really?
Yeah. They in the stream that John had following that, they made some comments about how things went off the rails after you left. I think it was quite a bit after. So anyway, so you guys,
I don't know if that should make me feel better or worse that the fact that it got worse after I left is why he took it down. I don't know. I feel less
important.
Yeah, less important now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he wouldn't take it down for a fight with a creationist or a fight with an atheist. So anyway, So can you guys handle talking for a few minutes while I go with some coffee?
Sure. You here, Scott?
I am here.
No dead air, guys.
No dead air.
I'm turning the reins over to you.
Okay, it's time for me to start trouble.
Yeah, start trouble.
Is he gone? Is he gone? Is he gone? Oh, go away, Speed.
I'm going.
Okay, now Dr. Dan is saying some really, really weird stuff in the chat, guys. And maybe he'd clear it up here with me, but
I lied.
The funny thing is that I'm. Oh no! He caught me! Oh no! Please don't put me in the back. No, anything with that Speed. I'm sorry.
So what was he saying?
What was I saying about Dr. Dan?
No, what? Yeah.
No, I just don't know what he's talking about. It doesn't make any sense to me to say that like Darwinian evolution and evolution by natural selection are like identical, because there's some stuff that's true of one that's not true of the other, so they're just not identical. That's like saying a tree is identical with branches or something.
Well, at least y'all have a topic to discuss when y'all finally do get together on the same stream.
Well, we're going to talk about Fodor on the 23rd. We're not going to presumably,
well, maybe you could split it.
I guess this does apply, but Fodor is not attacking all of Darwinism, right? Or all of Darwin's thought. He's just attacking the mechanism that he postulated. He's not disputing other things that Darwin was saying, like in The Descent of Man and Origin of Species.
Like I would say that natural selection was kind of, well, even then, like natural selection wasn't really original to Darwin. There's also like Alfred Russel Wallace came up with the same idea a few years or sometime later before Darwin had published it.
Right. So do you agree with me that Darwinian evolution has more to it than just natural selection, right? Like descent with modification, right? For instance, that's not that might require a mechanism like natural selection, sure, but descent with modification is a different notion than natural selection. One might depend on the other. Like, for instance, a tree, there's like a concept of a tree, right? And it might depend on these parts, like a trunk, leaves, branches, roots, but none of the parts are going to be identical to the whole, right? Although a tree would need roots or need a trunk or whatever, right? Doesn't mean that there's some kind of identity relation that holds between them, each individual part in the tree. So I think that's Dr. Dan's mistake, is to say that Darwinian evolution is identical to evolution by natural selection. It's just, well, you can have a notion of a lot of what Darwin was saying without understanding natural selection at all, right? Like common ancestry, for instance.
Right, but common ancestry wasn't unique to Darwin.
But yeah, but that's not the dispute between Dr. Dan and I, right? The dispute is, what does it mean to say Darwinian evolution, and does it mean the same thing as evolution by natural selection? And to me, if you say yes, that's like saying that a tree means a trunk. Doesn't mean that.
Wait, are you okay? Are you saying Darwinian evolution is the same as the theory of evolution?
I'm rejecting the claim that Darwinian evolution is identical to evolution by natural selection.
Right. But like, are you saying Darwinian evolution is is the modern theory of evolution?
No,
Okay. So what's the dispute then?
I just told you. Look, listen. I'll say it again for like the fourth time. Darwinian evolution is not identical to evolution by natural selection, and to me, it's like saying that a tree is identical to a trunk. It's not. They're not identical. Now, it might be that to have a tree, you need a trunk, right? And I think that's the confusion, right? But
Oh, Danny boy.
I promise you, I was a good speed. I was a good boy.
Yeah, I heard enough of that.
No, okay. I was just talking about how good of a moderator you were in that last conversation with Dr. Dan. You know that you did everything you did was just and right.
Yep.
You know.
I must have missed that part.
Yeah.
Slept through
Okay.
it.
So, Darwinian evolution is historically, or if you read about it in books these days, it will refer to Darwinian evolution as being just natural selection. Okay, and so that's where it comes from. But you're having some sort of I don't want to use the word pedantic, but you're having some sort of a problem with identity, calling it identical, because Darwin talked about a lot of other things.
Right.
And of course, he had conjectures about the about genes, basically how it happened. Anyway, so then what was it? The modern synthesis, I believed, added genetics, Mendelian genetics, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I think you're roboting a little bit.
Oh, I am? Why?
I don't think he's not roboting for me. Or is that just me? Is that just him?
It's fine for me.
Okay.
It's roboting for
do you
me
think
for some
it's
reason.
pedantic? Now, I would ask you, Speed. Do you think it's pedantic to say that if you had said something like, Danny, did you know a tree is identical to a trunk? Do you think if I said that's not identical, that's pedantic?
No, that wouldn't. Well, yeah, a little bit, I guess.
Oh my gosh! But there's a huge implication if they are identical. It's not some kind of pedantry, right?
Well, what does it matter? What does it matter?
Well, what matters is that you're mischaracterizing a pedant for someone that actually seen a problem, right? Pedants, right? What they're doing is they're not being charitable, right? But with respect to my disagreement with Dr. Dan, I've explicitly highlighted, look, if this is what identity means, right? And it's not the case that it applies to this, and he still rejects it, right? So that's not me being a pedant, right? He's accepting, presumably, my notion of identity and still saying that it applies.
Okay, so Darwinian evolution without natural selection there's nothing there. There's no way to make it work.
What about? Oh no! Look, let's use an analogy, really a good analogy that's directly analogous, right? Continental drift was rejected.
Yeah, I heard that one. I don't like that one. Use something else.
Well, the point is that you need the theory of tectonic plates in order to make sense of continental drift, right? One of the reasons why continental drift was rejected initially is because there was no mechanism. Okay. Now, there was still evidence for continental drift. Okay. So the point is that to say that the theory of tectonic plates does not apply, or some kind of fatal flaw with it, does not disconfirm continental drift. We just need to look for a different mechanism, right? Now, and the same thing with Darwinian evolution, right? And you see Darwinian evolution involved much more than natural selection, like descent with modification, common ancestry. That I don't know if those two things are exactly the same, but the point is that as long as there's something, as long as that's true of Darwinian evolution and not true by evolution by natural selection, right? Then I lost my train of thought. But hopefully you're getting my point.
If you say something is true by Darwinian evolution, you are saying something is true by natural selection in modern parlance. I just don't know what your issue is with that, or where you're coming from.
Do you think you can accept Darwinian evolution and not accept common ancestry?
Yes, because common ancestry is related to evolution, not necessarily Darwinian evolution.
Wait,
common ancestry could be intelligent design.
Right.
Well, wait. This is purely exegetical, right? Purely historical. I'm just saying that what Darwin said? Go ahead.
No, you guys go ahead. I'm going to walk in and get something.
Okay. I'm saying that part of what Darwin's thought was that of evolution is that there was common ancestry, right? Am I wrong?
Right, but that wasn't part of his main idea.
What was his main idea?
That was, I would say, like an implication of Darwin's idea, right? Like,
okay,
right.
Sure, right? Look, does a tree imply a trunk? Yes. Okay. Well, I don't know a lot about trees, but let's just be charitable, right? If you disagree about that, trees imply trunks, okay? But to say that the tree is identical to the trunk, or identical to the branches, or the leaves, or the roots, there's a problem there, right? In the same way that I don't think you can say that Darwinian evolution is identical to evolution by natural selection, because there's other things about Darwinian evolution that Darwin himself would say is part or implied by the notion.
No,
right?
I would disagree. Natural selection was the only mechanism that Darwin proposed.
No, I'm not talking about mechanisms.
Okay.
Okay. There's Darwin observed things, right? That, right now, you want to distinguish evolution as a mechanism and then mechanisms of evolution, right? Evolution and the mechanisms of evolution are distinct, and it could have been. I could grant, right, that natural selection was the only mechanism that he postulated, but part of evolutionary thought, according to Darwin, included other things, other things other than mechanisms, right?
You can't say it.
It wasn't just mechanisms. Yeah, I couldn't say it. Sorry.
I looked up his basically. I could hard to find this book because I'd never read it and I seldom refer to it because it really doesn't matter. But natural selection has, it looks to be about 50 entries in this book.
What about descent with modification?
Descent with modification. We'll go check that out. I'm pretty sure you'll find a lot of those.
Well, I will. Common ancestry wasn't a new idea by Darwin.
Descent with modification doesn't exist in the index. So
common descent as an idea had been around for like 100 years by the time Darwin came around. He just proposed a new mechanism. That was the point of Origin of Species. And I'm sorry if I'm misinterpreting what you're saying, but like Darwin was just providing a mechanism for the prevailing thought at the time that worked better with the other ones.
Speed rejects my analogy, but do you reject my analogy because of continental drift and tectonic plates?
So I missed it. I'm sorry.
So I want to say that continental drift is to some. This is, I can see a potential issue with this, but let's see if you see the same issue. But something like continental drift is to Darwinian evolution, as natural selection is to tectonic plates, the theory of tectonic plates, right? So if you say...
yes, I would disagree with that, though.
Okay, because continental drift is not a mechanism, right? But the theory of tectonic plates is a mechanism. And there's a kind of, today, an interdependency, right? It's a mechanism for continental drift is what I mean, right? But to say that, but to show that the theory of tectonic plates, let's say we falsified that, right, does not mean that we throw away continental drift.
Yeah,
I would say I would disagree slightly. I would say plate tectonics incorporates some mechanisms, but it is not a theory.
You're right. There's induction. There's like the induction in the core and the mantle and all this. It's convection. Sorry, not induction. Convection.
That is one idea, but that is not central to plate tectonics.
Right. I'm just saying that there's all these mechanisms for continental drift, or things that you could try to explain continental drift. But just because your mechanism doesn't work doesn't mean you discard your observation that the continents are moving. Right. So what here's essentially what I'm saying. If A is identical to B, and if B is false, that means A is false. Right. So what I'm saying is that if I'm making the claim that natural selection was the main kind of bread and butter in terms of what explains evolution. So if let's just pretend, if it's falsified, if it shows that there's some kind of inherent flaw to it, we wouldn't discard all of Darwin's stuff, right? Just everything to do with natural selection. He still talked about common ancestry, and he had all this crap in the descent of man, right? The Darwin, the whole speciation kind of stuff would just need a different mechanism.
Well,
without natural selection, it wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. You'd end up with.
I disagree, but.
Well, so how would you propose like lineage divergence?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I mean, you would end up with as many kinds of animals as there are individuals.
I don't.
Without natural selection, with the things you're talking about, you would end up like I think you listed 5 things which didn't even exist when Darwin was around.
What 5 things?
Natural selection, gene flow, genetic
No,
drift,
that's not part of. I understand
mutations, and sexual selection.
That's all current stuff. I understand that gene flow, genetic drift, so all that stuff, mutations, he didn't know anything about genes, right, or DNA. I understand that that's all new, right? Yeah, but the point is that if you say that one of the mechanisms for evolution doesn't work, right? Why not just search for a different mechanism for your observations? You're still going to think that there's evolution, right?
Wait, so I've been away from the internet for the past week, essentially. Why are we saying that natural selection doesn't work?
Yeah, he's
we'll try not to get into that.
There's problems with
okay.
But yeah. I mean, I can talk about it, but
that's basically why Danny is doing this, because he wants to try to save Darwin somehow, or evolution, and claim that natural selection isn't the most fucking important thing about how it works.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they're not identical. I'm accepting that natural selection is integral in evolution, in evolutionary theory at the time of Darwin, right? But what I'm saying is not identical to it. There's a big difference. A tree trunk is integral to a tree, but it's not identical to the tree.
Well, okay, but also Darwin, and I'm sure you would agree with this, Darwin got many things wrong. The theory of evolution today still incorporates natural selection, and the modern synthesis is probably what we should be discussing if you think it's a current problem with evolution.
The point, I guess this is the point that I want to make, right? Overall, is that I don't accept natural selection, but I don't think this is a problem for evolutionary theory, right? I think there are plenty. You can explain all sorts of stuff. You don't have to appeal to like overall principles of biology to explain a particular biological event, right? So I think that there's this mistake, right? But there's no problem. Practically speaking, for what evolutionary biologists are doing in the lab, for instance, this is a conceptual issue with natural selection, and so it doesn't really, I think, have a huge impact on how biologists are going to do science, or do study populations.
So, what are you? I'm still trying to figure out like what the proposed alternative is, right?
I don't have a proposed alternative,
because the ways that we use ideas like natural selection, and concepts such as like fitness and population genetics, you're saying that you don't have a problem with that, but you have a problem with like the philosophical underpinnings. But we know that the math works and it represents reality. So I don't know how you would change the ideas.
I don't mind talking to you about it, but I don't want any ankle biters and hyenas after me, because you're fresh. You're fresh meat. Everyone's heard me give these arguments multiple times, right? And they're probably tired of it, right? They're probably very tired.
You do know, Danny, that this is my demonic band of hyenas.
Yeah. I know. I am one of the original.
But I come from the Pride Land. I know I'm not in the Pride Land, right? But I'm just, I'm still a lion here. Okay, so but I'm sorry.
It's Char.
I'm just kidding. It was a joke. I like lying.
No, you're good.
But the point is, okay, if I'm just talking to you, then I don't mind explaining it once again. Okay. First of all, any mathematical truths that scientists are utilizing are all going to be tautological and unfalsifiable. So you mentioned the math, right? So what I don't want to dispute is that the math, quote unquote, works, right? That doesn't, to me, that that's just saying the math is practical. Sure, okay. But the thing is that we don't want to reduce natural selection to some kind of mathematical function, because then it just doesn't. It's just not a science. It's just a scientific tool at that point, not something scientific in itself, right? Math is not science, not under, right? Science uses the kind of truths in the uses math, right? They're not the same, right? Now, some people are going to define science very broadly in a way where it encapsulates everything. I'm not talking about that notion of science, right? Okay. But anyways, so we don't want to understand natural selection in terms of math, or otherwise it's just not a scientific theory. It's a mathematical theory or something, okay? So how are we on that?
Well,
okay, so
I agree with it in concept, but I also would say that, the certain mechanisms that apply, the underpinnings that apply to natural selection and how they intersect with biology didn't necessarily have to be true, right?
The underpinnings of what? Sorry?
Well, so like the ideas of inheritance and all that, and like most of what population genetics is built on, those didn't have to be correlated, right? There didn't have to be an inheritance factor of evolution, and the math that we use is describing that correlation factor.
Oh, sure. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, if I measure 5 milliliters of ethylene glycol, right, then, that's a contingent truth, right? It's not some necessary truth. What I'm saying is that if I were to make a claim that, oh, well, if it's if this number is greater than, if y is greater than x, then, mathematically speaking, that's going to be necessarily true, right? But that's not going to be any kind of like empirical claim, right? And we don't want to understand natural selection in that way, right?
Okay.
So the now, Speed, do you want to talk about this video, and maybe I can talk to Walking Fish later, or do you?
No, I just wanted to show Eric Murphy's look of pain when you got on.
Oh, I drove him nuts at the end, I think.
Well, anyways, I think he was face palming like after.
He was face palming like 5 seconds after.
Yeah. Was this the day?
Yeah, I funny thing is that what I was saying, I think everyone, I gave the same arguments here, and everyone accepted it. So he just wasn't getting it. But
what were you arguing against or for?
I don't think God is falsifiable.
Oh, but yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean therefore you ought not believe that God exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have like some deductive proof, like a cosmological argument or ontological argument. I don't think those arguments work. But the point is that if God is to be a kind of justified thing to believe in, it's going to be philosophically supported, not like scientifically supported or empirically supported. But he didn't get it. So anyway, and going back to the natural selection stuff, yeah. So you don't want to understand it as a mathematical model. That's not good. I don't think for it to be a scientific theory. Now.
Well, okay. What about things like E equals MC squared? Right. Is that just no longer scientific though?
Okay, so E equals MC squared. In terms of why one side of the equation is greater than the other side of the equation, once you do the math, that's going to be some kind of necessity. There's going to be necessity with respect to that. Does that make sense? So, like, let's say, there's some equation for how much money I have in my bank account, and it's Speed's dollars plus your dollars equals my dollars, right? Now, if we obviously that's not the case. That's not going to be true in the actual world. But in terms of why, if Speed had $2 and you had $5, why I would have $7, that's going to be a mathematical function, right? That's not even a scientific question anymore. Does that make sense? So the equation itself, right, might be contingently true or false, right, or accepted. But in terms of the function, and the way the function works, that's a mathematical issue, not a.
Oh my God! Did you call that a mathematical function? I'm going to go full pedantic on you.
It is redundant. You're right. It is redundant. I should just say function or mathematical expression. But the point. But I don't do that to y'all. Believe it or not, I really don't. Right? I know it feels like you do, but when a doctor is giving you an injection or giving you some kind of horrible procedure to help you feel better. It feels like he's might feel like he's trying to hurt you, but I'm here to help anyway. God, I'm sorry. If I were on y'all's side, I would hate me so much. But
no, you're good.
The point is that so natural selection. Now let's just talk about how you understand natural selection. So I think I have Fodor's understanding, but I know that all the biology textbooks that I've looked at in terms of Biology 101, which is like what Dr. Dan told me to read, right? As well as, I teach biology, and I use a biology textbook and biology resources that the state gives me, the district gives me. All of those renditions of natural selection are highly problematic and fall prey to Fodor's objection. Now, whether that the Pearson or the Campbell biology book is tracking what academic evolutionary biologists are saying is something that I'm interested in, right? But to my best knowledge, it is tracking. I think that most people are just going to convolute natural selection. I wouldn't use the word convolute. There's going to be a more sophisticated understanding of natural selection that they might employ in order to rebut what I'm saying. But I think it all reduces down to essentially some kind of truth that you would find in the Campbell biology book, right? 12th edition. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So I don't want to be arguing against something that you do not hold, right? That's what one of the most common criticisms of Fodor is that that he's just not talking about natural selection as evolutionary biologists are using it today, right? I think that's highly dubious. I think that the biologists that do accept Jerry Fodor that I've talked to think that he is being charitable to what they mean and what they're espousing as natural selection. But that's the first kind of hurdle. Yes, wow, that's so expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Is that the 12th edition?
Let's see, 11th.
11th? Okay.
Yeah, I bought it right before the 12th came out, I think. Pissed me off. Do you see what's written on the screen, Danny? From Dr. Dan? Do you have a problem with that?
There's some. I don't know what he means.
You don't know what he means.
Is he saying that they're identical or not?
Yeah, he's saying they're synonymous.
Yeah, that's a problem. Because there's things that are true about Darwin's conception of evolution that's not true of like evolution by natural selection.
How do you know?
Well, evolution by natural selection, where is descent with modification in that phrase?
Well, he calls it the Darwinian theory of descent with modification, and natural selection is considered synonymous with that.
Mm-hmm.
Do we agree on what identity means, guys? Look, it's very
not when it comes to how people refer to things. No.
Okay, I just mean if A is B, that means everything true of B is also true of A, and vice versa.
Yes.
That would be the case if you're looking at strict identity, but I don't think any of us are talking about that.
Wait, but he just said yes.
Okay, go ahead, Walker.
Well, I was just saying, if you say A equals B, then the subsets of A also equal the subsets of B. Right?
Yes. All properties are shared between them. Yeah. Now, the problem is that someone can understand a lot about Darwin and never heard about Darwin's notion of it.
So I would disagree that certain things like common descent are necessarily included in Darwinian evolution. They were proposed by Darwin, but Darwinian evolution is synonymous with like evolution by natural selection.
Okay, what does that define evolution then?
Evolution is change in allele frequencies over time.
Okay, is there any notion of natural selection in that definition you just gave me?
Well, that's the modern synthesis definition of evolution, not the Darwinian definition of evolution.
So what does Darwin define as evolution then, I would ask?
Natural selection.
Yeah, natural selection.
So Darwinian natural selection is evolution by natural selection. So evolution by natural selection means natural selection by natural selection. Is this what y'all are telling me?
Yep. According to Darwin, Darwin's only proposed principle was natural selection.
That cannot be true. Evolution by natural selection would just mean natural selection by natural selection. That's the silliest phrase in the world. It can't be true what you're saying.
Well, I'm not all evolution is natural selection.
That's the problem.
Mechanisms.
That's why they're not identical.
No, Darwinian evolution and natural selection are the same, but we're in a post-Darwinian phase, right? We're in the modern synthesis. There's like so many different mechanisms.
There's an equivocation between evolution here, which is still a problem, right?
Okay. Hang on a second. Go ahead.
Well, I'm kind of lost here.
Look at what creation myths just put. Sorry, Dr. Dan.
Okay.
He said, right, that the phrases Darwinian evolution and evolution by natural selection are identical in some way. Now, I don't know. I think that's what he means.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he doesn't mean that, I have no objection. Right?
Okay. Darwin realized that explaining such adaptations was essential to understanding evolution. His explanation of how adaptations arise centered on natural selection.
Why are you ignoring the trunk analogy? Look, a tree relies on a trunk, it relies on branches, it relies on roots, but it's not identical to them.
Because
a trunk is essential.
Because we don't need no stinking philosophy.
Okay.
Oh my God, I don't know what you mean. That's not an answer. You realize, Speed, that's not an answer.
No, that's a good answer.
Wait, can I just have a quick objection? Okay, so a different mechanism like drift, right? Drift is a mechanism of evolution, so you could say evolution by drift, but drift is not a part of Darwinian evolution.
Right. That's fine.
Yes.
Right. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Look, the point is that, listen to what Speed just said. He was talking about some kind of essential relation, which is not relating to identity. Something that what's essential to my living is my heart, right? But my heart is not synonymous with my living. Okay? So essential and identical don't mean the same thing, right? Being a man is essential to being a bachelor, but being man is not synonymous with a bachelor.
Yeah.
Okay, so this essentialism bullcrap. Sorry, I should calm down. This essential stuff is irrelevant. Okay, I agree that that Darwin's notion of evolution really relied on natural selection. That's not the disagreement. The disagreement is the meanings of the phrases. They are not equal.
The meaning of the phrases as they're currently used colloquially, or as they're used by science? By
whatever he means by them. Because if he's saying that evolution is defined or understood differently today than it was back then there's an equivocation in the chat, right? Darwinian evolution, that notion of evolution is differently used than the evolution by natural selection, which is still a problem because if you're equivocating, they're definitely not identical.
Do you know how to get rid of a philosopher?
You have to put them in the back seat of the car
No, you agree with them.
Yeah, that's true. I will leave you alone. Absolutely.
Yep. Anyway, Darwin wrote a long essay on descent with modification and its underlying mechanism, natural selection. So when we refer in contemporary times to Darwinian evolution, we are saying natural selection. In that sense, in that colloquial sense, it is synonymous.
Yeah.
In the sense that you're talking about, Danny, you're right. It's not synonymous. It's the underlying mechanism. It's like your plates and your continents. So your absolutely strict analysis of this problem, I will say you are correct. But it doesn't fucking apply to.
This is ridiculous.
It doesn't apply to what Dr. Dan was saying.
Look what you're doing to me. I'm basically your angry girlfriend, and you're telling me, "Look, I'll cook you dinner." Yeah, you're right in some sense. So yeah, it's okay, babe. No.
You want to be my girlfriend?
Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah. I would totally be a girl if I could, but I don't have that option.
Hey, Speed, can you pull up David Neff's question for Danny?
Ask Danny. Okay, David Neff. The theory of evolution is a theory on what?
The theory that I think the idea is that evolution is supposed to. I don't even know if it depends on what you mean by evolution, right?
Fucking philosopher.
I mean, if evolution means something like a kind of change in allelic frequencies over generational time and a population, blah 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 blah, right? The question is well, what is that? Do you differentiate a theory or a kind of? I mean, theory is supposed to be explanatory, right? They're kinds of mechanisms that are kind of principled, right? So are you? I don't really think of evolution in that way, right? So, I just don't know how you distinguish evolution and theory of evolution.
Okay, isn't your whole task in life here to use philosophy to help us scientists?
No.
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 Is it to fuck us up? I mean, what is your goal?
My goal
Closer.
My goal is just
warmer. I'm getting warmer.
why am I talking to you right now? Well, I enjoy the conversation.
Okay.
I thought it was to trigger atheists.
I do like doing that, but
yeah, no,
I'm not doing that here. I
yeah,
like
we caught
y'all.
that last night. At 3 a.m. Guess what? We're fucking listening.
Yeah, no, I do. Wait, I just admitted it, right? I do like triggering atheists, but I don't like triggering y'all. That's no fun.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, Leo might be fun to trigger. That guy, Karen.
No.
He's
Mini
horrible.
Karen.
Midnight and I are trying to be friends now, so I'm not going to talk anything bad about him. And I like Leo, but but that Karen guy is just. Ugh. But there's some people I like to trigger. No, y'all are not the ones I like to trigger. No. So why am I having this conversation with y'all? It's because it really benefits me, believe it or not. I get better in terms of communicating, and communicating this stuff is very difficult. Every time I communicate it, I like to think that I get better at communicating it, whether I'm right or wrong. But I think that might be part of it. And I love resolution. If there is resolution, whether I'm right or wrong, there's benefit by definition, right? So I guess that's why I'm doing it to y'all. But no, I don't aim to make you guys miserable. That's not why I'm here.
Okay.
I've never once.
That makes me feel so special.
I do. I tried to. I mean, I went on Talk Heathen. I didn't want to make them miserable. I wanted to make everyone in the chat and all their followers miserable because they're. Ugh. But no, that Eric guy, even though he didn't understand a word I said, it seemed like a really nice. He let me talk, and I like talking to those kinds of people.
See, you got Eric to drink. That's vodka.
It better be. The woman has. I mean, she was pleasant too, but yeah, they were. Matt Dillahunty's the worst, though. She's absolutely worst. But
well, Matt wouldn't suffer you for long.
Oh no, he didn't. Right? I've talked to him twice, I think, or once. I don't know. Yeah, no, Matt is. That's horrible. But I like Eric. Eric and I could probably go out to dinner and we could have a good conversation.
He's a pretty nice guy. Yep.
But my motivation change is what the point. I don't have one particular motivation.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be interesting to hear you. I really wish you guys wouldn't wait till February 23rd. That'd be crazy. I don't even know if I'm going to.
You want to do it earlier? We can do it earlier. Let's do it on the 16th.
What happened?
Well, who wanted it later? Was it you or Dr. Dan?
He offered the 3 dates. I chose the latter date because I have to read. Look, in case you don't know, all of y'all are probably busy, but I work. I'm a teacher full time, and I'm a graduate student.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what I'm doing right now. I should be doing my work, right? I will. But
same.
But the point is that the longer the time, the easier it is for me to present something better, right? Yeah. But no, I mean, if it's not feasible to do it on the 23rd, let's just do it on the 16th, and I'll be ready.
Yeah. Either way, we've already decided on the 23rd. We can do it then.
Wait, so is the point basically the falsifiability of natural selection? Or?
Well, that's one problem, but I think that Fodor has a different objection that's rather interesting.
Has a different objection. We want you to know exactly what it is and explain it to us.
Oh, no, I know exactly what it is.
Is it the free riders one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so my whole objection to that is they're more or less like they're programmed by the same alleles, so they're effectively the same trait.
Right? Wait, you think that the thump noise is the same trait as the pumping of the blood?
Well, okay, so if you define evolution as change in allele frequency, the alleles that control the thump and the pumping blood are the same. So evolutionarily, there's no difference.
Right.
Yeah. So why is it that those genes are selected?
It's not for us to judge. I mean, like
what? You don't want to say that because it codes for a pumping mechanism in the circulatory system?
I mean, sure, I could say that. I'm just saying, like, okay, so the whole idea the whole idea about natural selection is differential reproductive success, right? And then you can take the differential reproductive success and find the most fit phenotype and find the different phenotypes that are being selected against compared to that phenotype. It's not really relevant what it's being selected for, quote unquote, because in reality, there's nothing being
what
selected
is natural
for.
selection trying to do then?
So I guess free
Natural selection is
rider
just trying to create something that survives better and passes on its genes better.
Create? So it's a mechanism then, right? As you do agree that it's a mechanism. I've heard.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's definitely a mechanism.
Okay, so it does something.
Mhm.
Okay. Now,
Has a function.
presumably,
Has a
if
function.
it does something, it is selecting, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So the fact that there is a selection, right?
Mhm.
There's an explanation for that selection, and presumably the natural selection is there to save us, right? In terms of what explains.
Well, the explanation for that selection is just what survives better and what passes on its
Wait,
genes
it's already
better.
survived though. Look, just the fact that you observe it means that it survived.
Okay. Well, yeah, I worded that improperly. The thing that's selecting for is passing on its genes better, right? So you can have a less fit phenotype that's being quote unquote selected against that's still surviving and passing on its genes. It's just doing it worse than a different phenotype.
Look, I have all these genes. Let's say I have X, Y, and Z genes.
Sure.
Okay. They're there, which means they were selected. Right?
Mhm.
The fact that they exist means that at some point they were selected. Now, you don't think that natural selection is in the business of answering why?
No, it's just showing that. Well, the only explanatory power behind natural selection is saying that different things are better at passing on genes, right? Like different things are more successful.
We already
in
know by
environments.
observing the genes that they're better than the ones that didn't survive.
Well, and then there's always going to be a different genotype that rolls around that's more fit than the previous one.
Well, that means that you would, I mean, it seems like this is just. I'm not going to jump into thinking that I understand you. I'm just saying that there is some kind of thing I have to think through if you were to say that, oh, well, no, natural selection is not in the business of understanding why phenotypes are. I mean, it just seems so weird to me, right? And I know there's a problem here, and I have to be efficient in addressing it, but I'm not quite there yet. So,
well, we can call the trait the thump thump or the pumping blood, but it doesn't matter because whatever has that trait is more efficient at passing on its genes into the next generation.
In virtue of what?
Compared to the rest of the population.
If it doesn't thump thump, it's not going to make it out of the womb, right?
Well, is it that okay? So you're saying the thump thump noise is being selected?
I'm saying what now?
I'm saying that the alleles that create the thump thump noise are the same that create the blood squishing, and ultimately they're being selected.
Here, let me paint
regardless of what their effect is.
Let me paint you the narrative, and you can just tell me, just to make sure I understand, right? I thought the narrative was something like this, right? There are these genes or these alleles, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have been selected for, right? That's to say they exist in some kind of significant frequency, right, with respect to the population, and it seems to be increasing, right? More of the population are acquiring these alleles, okay? Now, then I ask, well, why, Mr. Biologist, right? And you could say something like, oh, because of natural selection. Or you could say something like, well, those genes provide a structure that pumps nutrients to all of your cells in your body, right? And to me, one is that is not established by what I take to be the theory of natural selection. Okay, that's kind of like how I see it.
Well, so my first qualm, and this is one of my biggest problems with Fodor as well. And the first thing that you said was these are being selected for. And like I said, evolution, well, I guess not evolution, but natural selection specifically, isn't in the business of selecting for. It's in the business of selecting against, right? So if something, it's usually deemed the most fit, phenotype or genotype, the most fit alleles, right? Those are going to be the ones that have the relative fitness of one, and everything else is being selected against compared to that. So
what do you mean by selected? What do you mean by selected?
The proportion of the population is decreasing with respect to the most fit phenotype.
Wait. Okay, but you said something about selection against. So if I just replace selection with what you just said, that the proportion of what? Sorry, the proportion.
The proportion of allelic increase in a population, or the proportion of allelic decrease in a
But
population.
how does that mesh with the word against?
Because those alleles are decreasing.
Wait,
as a proportion of the total population.
Well, this is going to be a little okay. So let's look at the private chat. So you're defining selection in terms of so there's selection against, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's selection against. So let me understand that's. I mean, I might have like a prima facie understanding of that. That's sensical. Okay. Now, but then I just asked what selection meant, and you said the proportion.
It's selection against.
Proportion proportion of what? I'm writing it down. I'm sorry, you're repeating it a third or fourth time.
Oh no, you're good. So the other alleles are being selected against because the allele frequencies are decreasing as a proportion of the total population.
I'm not asking what selection against means. I'm asking what selection is.
Selection against is selection.
Okay, so you mean what you mean by select? Is that right? That selection and selection against are synonymous?
I would say, yeah.
I don't. In population genetics theory, or like in the overall idea of population genetics, I would say yes. As it's used, I don't quite know.
Yeah, selection 4 would be difficult because I think
usually the response to Fodor is distinguishing selection for and selection of. I've heard that response.
Selection against.
Right, but now I've never heard selection.
You have to understand that most selection is selection against.
Well, essentially all selection is selection against.
All selection is.
Because the selection coefficient is defined as the 1 minus the relative fitness of that phenotype. Right, so that's the amount of selection that's acting against that allele.
So just to understand, if a meteor destroyed Earth, would that be selection against?
Yeah. Well, it depends if it caused any allelic change in the population.
Yeah,
right?
It went from percentage to no percentage.
So, like, are you saying like all humans just go extinct?
I'm saying a meteor destroys Earth.
Oh,
everything goes extinct.
I mean,
that's
selection against. You're not.
It would have to be a huge meteor.
Evolution.
No, that would be selection against, Walker.
Okay.
I mean, that would select against everything all at once.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Okay. So let me. I only wrote this part of this. So you're saying that there's something wrong with the phrase selection for? Are you saying there's something wrong with the selection of? Do you make that distinction or not?
I don't understand the distinction.
I think selection of would be
like I've never heard the distinction being
more difficult. Let's use Fodor's example. Okay, let's say you want to make an arch in a building. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's your goal. Okay, now while you're making the arch, it so happens to create spandrels, right? Mm-hmm. Which is not what you care about. You just like the archies. They're very cute, whatever. Okay. And then a byproduct of that is the spandrels that are kind of formed in the building. Okay. So how Fodor expressed is something like selection 4 would be sort of the interesting trait, right? With respect, the goal, right? And then whatever is kind of coextensive with that goal is going to be what's selected. That's the selection of, right? So there's selection of spandrels rather than like rectangles, right? And that's in virtue of the selection 4 of the arch. Now, of course, this is not analogous to natural selection because we're talking about an intentional explanation, right? Yeah. We're talking about a goal, okay? Now, when we talk, but there's still, to some extent, this kind of distinction still exists, though, right? Where there are some kind of what do we call, you know what a free rider is, right? Those are not interesting. Like if they could somehow be eliminated, right? That we would still have an organism with the same allelic frequency or whatever, right?
Well, could you change the free riders without changing the alleles that make them?
Yeah, I think in principle that's possible. Yeah.
How so?
Well, there's no logical contradiction.
Well, okay. So, using Fodor's thing, the whole heart blood pumping versus thumpy thumpy. How could you get rid of the thumps while leaving the heart to do what it does, and then not change the alleles that program it?
I'm saying there's no logical contradiction.
I'm saying if we're talking about alleles, yes, it cannot happen.
Okay, there's a contradiction?
Well, it's like I said, it's the same alleles that make the thump versus making the blood
why
pumping.
couldn't you have a world in which you have those alleles but no thump thump noise?
You would have to have an entire different mechanism of protein synthesis and all that.
Wait, no, not even. Where's the contradiction?
Because it's not applicable to our world. You could have a different world.
Do you know what a hypothetical is? It's literally a counterfactual.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand.
Okay, counterfactually, it's possible, right? That's what.
So we're basing this argument in our current understanding of evolution and natural selection.
I'm telling you how to differentiate. I'm trying to explain how we differentiate selection for and selection of, right? And I'm saying it's understood counterfactually.
Okay. I don't think the hypothetical is quite applicable to our universe, though.
I don't know what that means, right? The point. Look? Could you have? Could I have? I'm from Louisiana, right? Could I have been from Texas?
Sure.
Yeah, but obviously in the actual world, it's that I'm in Louisiana, but it's no problem in saying that I could have been from Texas, right?
But science is in the business of describing the actual world. That's probably nitpicky. I'm going to let you get on with your point. I'm sorry.
No, I don't mind, and you're very polite, so I don't mind being interrupted. But the point is that let's use the arch example, okay? The spandrels, right, are a happy byproduct of my goal of creating arches, right? And the point is that if there were no spandrels, my goal is still achieved. In a world where there are no spandrels, I'm still happy because I got my arches. Okay, so that's how I distinguish selection for and selection of. If we're talking about the survival and reproductive success of an organism, obviously, look, I have fingernails, right? That if I rip them off, I'm still can survive and reproduce. In fact,
but you're going to pass on the alleles that create fingernails to your offspring.
Right, but let's say that we modify the alleles in a way where I don't get fingernails, or toenails are more vestigial. But I don't know if that's true. Are both toenails and fingernails considered vestigial? It doesn't matter. But the point is that I think toenails are a good example of vestigial structure. We could, in principle, modify.
I mean, wouldn't the appendix be better?
I think they're starting to discover a particular use for that, but I'm not so sure. Okay, but
boy, I sure wish there was a doctor on the panel.
No, but I think there are articles that are suggesting that there might be a function, or there might be a selection for, right? The point is that selection of, there's the way that function is used reflects selection for, not selection of. That's another way maybe to understand it. But it's just understood counterfactually, I think. And you're saying that, well, look, in these counterfactuals, I don't see why I don't see why it could happen, right? That it's plausible or possible in a world where you could have a heart pumping but no thump thump.
I just got Maddox flashbacks. When you said logical, plausible, I don't know. It just
that's actually, to be honest, the way that he uses the word plausible there, I've asked him before, and he started saying that I was using semantics, so I just dropped it. But,
what do you think of the way he uses the word premise, Danny?
Wow.
I'm friends with LPP. I don't know what he's saying half the time, and I don't understand. Okay, but I maybe there's a day where we could talk about it and understand all the terms, but I guarantee you it will just probably end up, Danny, this is all semantics, blah 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 blah, and I'm not interested in that conversation. But anyway, because I really don't know what he means by logical, plausible, or probable. I actually have notions of that, and maybe one day he and I could talk about what he means. But I'm scared to talk to him about that. But the point is that what are we talking about? Oh yeah,
you were talking about toenails and removing them.
So how I understand that selection of rather than selection for is counterfactually. If I had alleles that instead coded for proteins, all my proteins except for the keratin that constitutes my toenails, right? That my reproductive success and my survival would not be in jeopardy. So it's just selection.
Okay. So if you remove the differential reproductive success aspect, then it's no longer selection at all, and it's just subject to drift, which is a totally different mechanism.
Wait, so I can't tell. Are you disagreeing?
Well, kind of. I don't really know.
I don't really, because what you just said there, I'm not so sure how it coheres with what I just said.
Well, so you were saying that if you change the alleles and you got, or like some proportion of the population did not produce toenails, right? But that the lack of production of toenails didn't affect their reproductive success at all. Then that alleles, the gene, I guess, the loci that affects toenail production would just be subject to drift, right? It wouldn't be subjected to natural selection at all, or any sort of selection, right? Because drift is more or less the opposite of selection. It's what you have when there is no selection.
Right, it's random.
Yeah, if the thump noise became important, like in predators could find you if you thumped, then that would be selected against. But now the interesting thing is doctors use the rushing noise of blood going through your veins in your heart and the thump noise to ensure your health. So actually, for humans, I think it's being selected for.
Well, then, I mean, that's fine.
No, because there's nobody that doesn't thump. So that's so silly.
Why did they remove the appendix if it's not so useless then?
Yeah. Well, you can remove a lot of things that might have some function, right? Like you can remove the spleen, right?
Function. The function of the heart. The function of the heart is to take low pressure fluid as an input and output higher pressure fluid. That's a heart function.
Yeah, but then it's just not a good example anymore. The point is that there is going to be some example where you have, to put it in normative terms, an interesting trait and a worthless trait, right? And so we have to make sense of that, I think, in biology. And if you're not making sense of that, then everything is interesting, or everything is.
We have made sense of it. We have made sense of it. There's basically, if there's something that kills the organism, then that is selected against. And then if anything that doesn't kill the organism will end up subject to drift or whatever. Yeah, gene flow, drift. It will make itself evident in that way. But now sometimes if there's a trait that is really positive and the environment changes, there can be a sweep, basically, where a gene sweep, where the thing will just sweep the population. But that's because those that don't have it die. Mm-hmm. So basically you have something that so that's kind of a selected for, isn't it, Walker?
Well, even in the case of a sweep, you're still just having strong selection against the original allele. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, something can make up 99% of the population and still be selected against.
You know, I've never thought I rarely say this, but now that I think about it, I think the selection against thing is just a verbal dispute. It's not an interesting concept because think about, I think, and maybe, here's my argument, I could be wrong, but something like if I have a course, right, and you're only allowed to have, in order to get in the course, you have to have above a 3.5 GPA, right? That means there's a whole swath of people that are, quote unquote, selected against, right? But the idea of selection against implies what? That there, in principle, could be something that's not selected against, and that's what I just mean by selected for.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I would agree to an extent. I mean, you can think it's just the way that I guess
the point is that what I mean by
the terms of against and not for.
Well, the point is that if I if someone said that, if I created that bottleneck for whoever entered my class in terms of that 3.5 GPA, if someone says this is unfair that you're selecting certain students into your class and not others, I'm saying no, I'm not selecting students. I'm not selecting students, right? I'm selecting against students, right? Well, to me, those are synonymous, right? They're just using different terms.
So they're exactly synonymous? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Well, the point is
Nice
that what implies that there's a selection against is that there's in principle something that's selected that could be selected for.
Mm-hmm. Well, and once again, I think the ultimate product of selection is just an increase or decrease in reproductive success as a proportion of the population. I guess, I mean, it's generally not thought of as selection for when you're actually like doing it. I don't.
I don't mean
any
to dispute.
like problems with
I don't
it,
mean. Yeah, I don't mean to dispute. There's a useful notion of selection against. It's useful to me to say, yeah, this person had a 2.3 GPA, not in my class, right? That's very useful. I'm saying that, look, to discard selection for and replace it with selection against, it just seems to be a practical concern than a conceptual concern, right? You don't have a conceptual concern for the phrase selection for, right? And I think Dr. Dan kind of affirmed my point, right? That there's still, to say that something's been selected for is still meaningful, right? And maybe you didn't mean to say that it wasn't meaningful, but it's useful to say that there's selection against, but I think it's just as useful in cases to use selection for. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Well, okay. So, but your biggest problem with using the term selection for or selection against is it implies agency, right?
I don't know. I think you could construe it. No. I'm not going that route. I don't think that there's a teleological problem, right? I'm saying there's some other problem, right? In terms of utilizing the theory of natural selection and understanding what are the interesting traits, right? That we can still understand what the interesting traits are, but it's just not going to be understood in terms of natural selection. That's my claim, right? That's not the argument. That's the claim. Okay. And so then Fodor comes and brings an argument to support that, right? Using the coextensionality free rider arguments, right?
What?
That's the underlying. That's underlying the sort of dialectic. But I do have to go. Do you want the last word?
No. I mean,
okay.
I've just been talking. I'm good.
I have to go. We have a dog that has fleas. We have to bomb the whole house. So
bomb the house. Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh no, you have fleas.
And apparently bombs.
Oh,
my girlfriend has fleas, but they're biting her, but I'm not being bitten for some reason.
The dog. Okay, here's what I suggest: kill the dog, burn your house down, move to another state if you got fleas. Okay, there's nothing
we're considering.
I mean, this isn't the first time you're going to have to bomb the house. Take my advice, son. Or get used to fleas. That's the other possibility. I found that effective. Okay, so next subject.
Next subject?
Well,
what else is there going on? What else have I missed in the past week?
Andrew had a talk with Neff last night, and that was
yeah. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, Walker, because I don't know how much your expertise is in nested hierarchies.
I mean, so I'm currently in a computational phylogenetics lab.
Ooh.
So,
Oh, you are?
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's a very new development. The first week I was in the lab started last week. So I am going to hopefully be contributing to the research field within the next, semester or so.
What are you doing? What tools are you using?
So I've been trying like hell to get it to work, but I've been, actually you might be able to help me because you're more of a computer person. There's a program called RevBase I've been trying to get to work.
What is it called? What is it called?
RevBase. Like, yeah, I'll put it in private chat.
Yeah.
Private chat. You guys in the private chat.
But, oh my God, RevBase is impossible to get to work if you don't have a Mac. And I'm like the only person
Oh,
who
no,
doesn't
I have a Mac. And I don't have my Windows hooked up to the internet anymore because that's horrible. What's
ended up happening is I've ended up so I have a virtual machine on my computer now that's running Ubuntu on one monitor and Windows on the other.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it to work in Ubuntu, but this is my first time like using Linux. And for some reason so I go into the command line terminal and I type the command and it says it doesn't work. And then so I go to the like help section of the website and they say, okay, we'll put in this command if this happens. And then that doesn't work either. And I am a total baby when it comes to programming right now.
So are you using Docker? Or how are you hosting Ubuntu?
Just a program called VirtualBox, like Oracle VirtualBox.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So using VB. I wonder. So you're having trouble getting it running under Ubuntu.
Right. Yeah. You didn't write anything in the private chat.
I wrote it in the public chat.
Somebody else did. Yeah, somebody wrote it. I got it. RevBase.
Yeah, I put it in the public chat because Speed shamed me for saying I was going to put it in the private chat.
I did shame you. I shame everybody who puts shit in private chat. I don't go look there. I don't like it.
I never heard of RedBase or RedBase or whatever. I don't know.
RedBase. I could so damn. Not sure how you. Well, okay. So it should work the same on Ubuntu. So what do you get when you do it?
What? Like, what's the point of the program?
No. What does it tell you when you try to run it?
Oh, God, so I'd have to pull up the virtual
okay.
machine. I don't have it up right now.
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk privately. I might be able to help you with
it. But I had to. So I had to compile it. And I think the compiling went correctly, but whenever I enter the command into the terminal, it doesn't actually pull up the command, and it just tells me to like re-download it again from GitHub, and it's like, all right, thanks.
Wow.
So, Walker, I don't suppose you saw, or since you probably didn't see my chat with Neff yesterday, did you happen to see my chat with SFT?
No, dude. So I've spent. I drove 8 hours on Friday and then 4 hours yesterday.
Oof.
And so today is like the first day I have any real free time.
Are you back at college?
Yeah.
Okay. How did your family do with the virus? Everybody okay?
Yeah. So my dad had it back in October. Actually, it's kind of a funny story. So my dad had it back in October. He's obviously still immune and stuff. My mom brought it home. She started showing symptoms, so she quarantined in her room. And so to prevent like me and my brother from getting sick, she and my dad went to quarantine down at the beach, which is a pretty nice place to quarantine. But then me and my brother started showing symptoms the day that she left. So we were basically, stuck home alone with no food. And also sick with the virus, so we had to rely on like other people to like drop us cooking supplies and stuff.
So,
Postmates.
Wow.
So I gotta head out soon, but before I do, Walker, would you mind if I asked you some questions about phylogenetics based on what me and SFT discussed?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm unfortunately, like I said, I haven't seen that. There is so many live streams that I have not watched in the past week that I need to catch up on.
Right. Okay.
I'm gonna say something really quick, Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Your icon disturbs me. It's a fish with legs.
Dude, I am more proud of this avatar than anything I've done on my channel. It is so funny to me.
Did you just strike a pose? Did you strike a pose and just Photoshop your legs on a fish? Like what?
Yes, that's exactly what I did. Yeah. So if you look up coelacanth on just Google, this will be one of the first images that comes up, and those are my actual legs. So
What? Why? What possessed you to make that monstrosity? The world is not ready.
I thought it would be funny, and you are currently laughing, so I have done my job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's creepy, it's disturbing, but it's funny.
Okay, so yeah, we can probably wrap up for the day. Saturday Night at the Atheist tonight on Sunday.
Snunda?
Snunta? Sunda.
Sonata. Potentially so. It depends. So tomorrow is my first day of classes. So I may have stuff to just get done tonight before we go. But we'll see. If I can, I'll try to hop in.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if everybody's interested. We'll do it. But we might go. Might end up finding some bookmarks to go over. I got a really good one by Agatha where he kind of admits that, where he admits to the Big Bang.
Huh?
But he doesn't know it. He doesn't realize it. Anyway, we'll see what happens tonight. It's up to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But okay, so I think we can wrap up for the day.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Okay, so we are going to go unlive, and I guess undead. Are we going? If we're still in the back room, are we undead? I don't know.
We're undead while we're live on stream.
No, we're unlive. We're unlive. I don't get it. Goodbye, Crew World.